My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Hey, community policing, right? What about community dispatch?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the raspy dispatcher. Sorry if I'm looking a little rough today. I pulled a little 6-hour overtime shift, midnight to 06 last night, and now I'm up at noon my time, jumping on another wonderful interview for you guys. I really am excited about today's interview, like all the interviews, let's be honest, but one thing I love to talk about with folks is, life after dispatch, life after the headset, and how they were able to take those skills that we learned in dispatching are so unique to dispatchers and find another calling after leaving 911. So today, my guest, Vanessa Lewis, is going to talk about that with me, how she got into emergency management after dispatching and business continuity. So here is Vanessa.
Hi,
Vanessa.
Hi,
Oh,
nice to meet you.
nice to virtually meet you as
Yeah.
well. Thank you so much for being willing to jump on and talk to me today.
Absolutely.
So how did you get into public safety? What is your dispatch journey?
Kind of that classic tale, kid of public safety.
Ooh.
My granddad on my mom's side was a battalion chief with our local fire department. When he retired, my dad became an officer at the local police department. He's still a sergeant there to this day.
Very cool.
My mom became a dispatcher when we got to be a little older at the same department. I kind of grew up I had a few things I was interested in, but school, I didn't have like a real, kind of that what I want to be when I grow up feeling. I had a lot of things I was interested in. It was, I graduated in 2001, September 11th happened, right? My freshman year of college, I was kind of aimless. I was working for a vet at the time, and I had been doing that all throughout high school. I started working in a 24-hour vet. I liked that kind of emergency thing. After doing that for a few years, my mom, kind of had me come sit in with her one night in dispatch. She was a call taker. And at one point she goes, you could do, I say that, I actually did that when I was still 17, because she goes, well, when you turn 18, you could do this. You could apply. And I was like, nah, I don't know if I want to dispatch with my dad on the radio. So, but I kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And when I turned, probably around the time I turned 20, maybe even when I was still 19, actually, I started applying because my parents kind of gave me that, you don't have to go to school, but you might want to find a big girl job.
I think we've all had that conversation in some way, shape, or form with our parents.
So that's what I did. Yeah. So it took a long time, actually, because, a lot of departments at the time didn't want to hire a 19, 20-year-old. We had a few departments around here that wouldn't hire you unless you were 21. So it probably took a good year and a half for me to just applying anywhere and everywhere around here in the DFW area. Before I finally got on with a pretty decent sized town just north of Dallas called Carrollton.
Okay.
And I started there in December of 2003. Thinking, I'll do this until I get my stuff together and get through college, and this will be good. It's the most money I'd ever made.
I hear that. Woo.
So, I thought I can do this. I can move out of my parents' house. I can get myself through school, and just be a single girl out on the town and have money and going to school and, figure out what I want to be. And that same month I met my husband.
No hot girl summer now.
No hot girl summer at all. Never happened.
You got that dual income, baby. Come over here with them benefits. Stop it.
Well, now, and I'll tell you, it was definitely not love at first sight. He was kind of mean to me at first because I was, a lowly trainee. And, he was actually kind of mean to me. A few times. He was on a different shift.
After this podcast interview, you guys are going to be a fight, and he's going to be like, I don't know what we're fighting about. Like, remember back before we were even knowing each other like that?
I where, we've been together, gosh, it'll be 19 years this year.
Look at that.
But,
a round of applause for that.
But what really sealed it for us was he did my classroom training. So that one-on-one time with him, we got to know each other and figured out that we had the same sense of humor.
That's wonderful.
So he was actually my first boyfriend when I was 20 years old, and he was 31. So that got my parents.
They were like, never mind. You don't need that big girl job. Come right back into this house now.
They were more worried that I'd end up with another cop. I was like, no, not at all for me. But no, that's kind of what, we kept it on the down low for a while. He actually ended up quitting that department in June of that same, right after. And he went to work at the same department as my parents.
That's one way to keep an eye on him, I tell you.
The first time he ever met my dad was at work.
Oh.
Like,
do you acknowledge it, or you just keep with the sir, lieutenant?
Well, he had met my mom. My dad was in undercover narcotics at the time. He was the sergeant.
Even better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because my dad can scuzz up with the best. He had come in. In fact, I always laugh. So I'm half Hispanic and half white. My mother's white, blonde hair.
Hey, me too, girl. Me too.
Yeah, half girls. My dad looks like Cheech. I mean, literally looks like Cheech.
I say my dad looks like the Mexican Hulk Hogan. He's like big guy.
Yeah, my dad's got that. The big full mustache. Yeah, my dad's got that too. So when he met Chris, my husband, had met my mom. He worked with her in dispatch and all that, but he never gotten around to meeting my dad. So the first time he met him, my dad had come into dispatch to, flirt with my mom or whatever he does. And he goes, babe, I think like the janitor came in and is talking to your mom. And I go, it's probably my dad. And he goes, I don't know. He's wearing jeans and a black t-shirt. That's definitely my dad.
Right, undercover. Just always on the job. I like it. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. And so he was like, should I go over? I go, you could go over and introduce yourself.
Oh, man. I'd just been like, hi, I'm new here. That's it. No further explanation.
And our relationship moved fast. So by that point, I think we ended up getting engaged the next month. We were engaged 6 months. We were married 8 months after that. So
we had to meet him.
Never a hot girl summer.
6 months into our marriage, I have to meet your dad.
Yeah, literally never a hot girl summer. I was hitched fast.
So amazing. So funny.
It was. So, but and through all this, it was probably several years into me dispatching before I was like, holy crap, this is my career. I mean, through all that, I thought about going to nursing school. I did all my prerequisites and everything.
Oh, wow.
I had like a pretty good GPA. I think it was like a 3.5 or something.
Well, all that math and science, I'd have a 2 point nothing. Like
that was the hardest thing for me. But yeah, I had like a 3.5 in that year. It was super competitive here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And they didn't accept anyone with less than a 3.75.
Yeah. Wild.
So I was crushed. We ended up being there for until December of 2008, and my husband got a job working with a friend that went into the gas and oil industry.
Okay.
And we moved to Arkansas. So I dispatched in Arkansas for a little bit too.
Arkansas, that must be interesting.
That was the biggest culture shock, I gotta tell you. It really was.
I can imagine.
And it wasn't for Little Rock, what was the craziest thing my husband told me shortly before we moved there. He goes, this can't be right. And I said, what? And he goes, I was just researching Arkansas, and it says there's only 1 million people in the entire state. That can't be right. And I go, I don't know. So I went and looked it up, and sure enough, yeah,
Oh, man.
people in the entire state of Arkansas. Meanwhile, I'm coming from DFW that had like 4 million just in our metroplex at the time.
Right. So I live in Cali, and I went to school in Iowa. So a lot of my basketball games were like plopping around the Midwest area.
Oh my
and
God.
There's a lot of just states where I'm just like, what? Who lives here?
Exactly.
And I feel like Arkansas is one of those places that I imagine is very low populated.
It really is, and it was neat. I really it's beautiful there. But yeah, huge culture shock, just people wise. We lived in Little Rock, but I actually dispatched for a town about 35 minutes north called Conway. There's 3 colleges there. And it was interesting to see. I found that same sort of like camaraderie that I had at Carrollton, was able to find it there. Made some lifelong friends there that I still keep in touch with. One of the other things that was very interesting to me is, and this was something I didn't learn until much later in my career, that there are different dispatch philosophies. There's different styles of dispatch. I did not learn that even there because it was so similar to what I had come from. It wasn't as, I don't want to say good, but it wasn't as maybe well trained. But kind of the way things were done there was pretty similar. There was a few things that were a little like, whoa, coming from Texas, things like as simple as prisoner transfers. In Carrollton in Texas, we all have marshals that they're responsible for all the warrants, all the prisoners, all that. Officers might make some here and there overnight as needed, but for the most part, the marshals all deal with that. The first time I confirmed a warrant in Conway, Arkansas, I remember the agency on the other line says, okay. I said, yeah, it's confirmed. This is what it is, bond, all that. And he goes, okay, cool. When are y'all coming to get them? And I go, I don't know. The marshals will deal with that. And I get my supervisor going, no, we do that. Hang on. Puts me on hold real quick and calls the sergeant up and says, hey, this agency out, 3 hours away has confirmed on this warrant, and they're wanting to know when we can come get them. And he calls back, will they meet us halfway? And I'm like, what is happening? And they go, just ask if they'll meet us halfway. And so I ask, and they go, yeah, you know what? Tell them to meet us at the old abandoned Chevron on the corner of Highway 3.
Could you imagine getting that call in Texas or Cali? Like, something suspicious. I see 2 cop cars and they're swapping a body between it at the old abandoned barn.
Those were terrifying to me. Absolutely terrifying. Because you just think of everything that could go wrong in BFE, Arkansas.
Yeah.
In the morning, trying to swap out of radio range, swapping a prisoner.
It is true. Like when you talk about like agencies and dispatch, like we all essentially do the same job, air quotes, but everyone does it so differently, depending on the population they're serving, the technology they have available, the staff. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dispatcher out there who does a prisoner swap for the department.
And in this case, it was also the size of the state that I had never had to consider. Being in Texas, and I don't know how Cali does it. I'm sure it's probably pretty similar. We have for like our local warrants, your little misdemeanor warrants, traffic tickets, crap like that, it's based on a region system. So if you have a traffic ticket in Houston, it won't show up for us in Dallas.
Yeah, it's kind of like we have like a local database.
Exactly.
And then if you really make someone mad, we'll put you in the big database where everybody can see it.
But all those little
Yeah.
small piddly whatever warrants in the NCIC. That all goes in our region system.
Yeah.
So it was strange to me that too. All of Arkansas stuff goes into NCIC.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
in Little Rock, you're 3 hours away from any border.
Yeah. They're like, I was hiding here. And they're like, well, we'll drive you across the state to hand you off. So don't come hide in Arkansas.
Like Carrollton, we're like, we're not going to Austin for a traffic ticket. No, get out of here.
Yeah. Sight release. We're not coming. We'll get them when they're closer.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. We'd have people calling us saying, I got to go. I'm in Houston. Go to Dallas for a funeral, but I have a warrant in Dallas, and how do for a traffic ticket, how do I make sure I don't get caught? Don't speed.
Well, you can come right down to the station and take care of that.
You can come take care of it, but if you get pulled over, you're going to jail.
Yeah, what do you mean? How do I get a freebie here? Like, how do we make this go away?
And you feel for them because I'm like, I get it. You're having to come down for a horrible thing, but take care of it.
Yeah. How long have you had this warrant? One time, so at my new agency, at my old agency, I didn't run folks because we were just so busy. We had a warrants channel for that.
Oh, yeah.
At this agency, I'm running people like it's the policy. If they put them on the call, we run them out fully, even if the officer's not asking for a full thing. It's officer safety. We run them out. And I got someone was coming in to just do something for a friend. And I ran this person out, and they had a warrant from like 1995. And I was like, oh, shit. I had to raise the officer like, hey, confidential info, are you clear? And they're like, go ahead, because it's like just so random, like this thing. And I was like, well, I got a warrant from 1995, and he was just like, copy, like just annoyed. And I was just like, obviously she's living the good life. She's turned her life around. I think it was like a traffic thing, nothing major, but it was one of those like, I gotta tell you about it. And then we ended up citing her out, but it was just like wild. How long? And like he had to call the department because I wasn't getting involved in it. I was like, that thing is so old, not site releasable. You can call over to them and sort that out. And they ended up citing them out. It was just like, this is you just escaping the law for centuries. Just
it really is. I had something like that happen too when we ended up moving back to Carrollton or back to Texas, and I went back to Carrollton. My husband ended up, that was the end of 2008 into beginning of 2009. And then we went through the recession, and he ended up getting laid off. Yeah, so that was fun. But we ended up coming back to Texas. I went right back to Carrollton. And I stayed there really for the rest of my dispatch career. So that was towards the end of like August 2009.
Okay.
We started having kids.
So
we had 2 boys. And then in 2016, we ended up going to a regional center.
Okay.
So it's now called the North Texas Emergency Communications Center. It's Carrollton, Addison, Farmers Branch, and Coppell, some other smaller cities. Carrollton is the largest of them. I mean, it's still like a decent sized town. It's probably about 140-ish thousand people at this point. But and it's like 37 square miles. So the smallest of those cities was Addison, and it is 4 square miles.
Do they got one dispatcher, or y'all just lump it in with something?
Well, and I'll tell you, it's a more well-off little city. So I think they had.
They fully staffed.
Smith lives in Addison, Texas.
Okay.
It's definitely one of those you bend over backwards for Addison, Texas.
That's wild.
Yeah, so you've got Carrollton. We were busy enough that, we had our minimum was 4 dispatchers, someone on our main police channel, someone on NCIC, a fire, and at least 1 call taker. So we went from that. The next smallest city, or the next largest city, I should say, of the 4 was Coppell, and it was literally exactly half the size of Carrollton. So it was one of those, we were so busy in Carrollton, we knew it was going to be the biggest culture shock for the other 3 agencies.
Right? Yeah, I could
So,
imagine.
yeah, so like I think Coppell, and we kind of staggered how we went into the new center. Coppell went first, then Farmers Branch, then Addison, and the 3 of them are having so much fun together. They're getting along. They're having that like high-fiving each other. This is gonna work, absolutely.
And then you like open the door, explosions start happening behind you. You like slow walk in.
Almost literally. I mean, we would come in for like training on our off days to learn, because it was a brand new CAD, brand new everything. So we'd come in for little training sessions here and there, and we'd just kind of walk into the floor, and like there would be no phones ringing, nothing, and we'd kind of laugh and chuckle to ourselves. Like, we are not going to know what hit them. We had a couple Addison dispatchers that came over to help us because we were so short-staffed with just calls. And they kept telling everybody, you have no idea. When Carrollton gets here, you have not work, you know? And
that's hilarious.
Day one that Carrollton came over there, you know, we had fire and police chiefs there. One of the assistant chiefs I had kind of known and grown up with since he was, I think, first made a sergeant. At one point,
They're like, SWAT's here to protect us from the dispatchers, not anything else. These Carrollton dispatchers are different. That's why they're here.
Yeah, exactly. We're built different. So yeah, the first day we came in, and I sat over on our police channel 1, kind of waiting. And I'll tell you a little backstory on our NCIC channels. So we always called it Channel 1 and Channel 2. Channel 1 being the main PD, Channel 2 being kind of our NCIC, but it was also kind of a catch-all. So you need someone to make a call, you go to Channel 2. You need to ask questions about something, you go to 2. We don't run anything on 1. You don't ask me for numbers. Don't ask me to run a plate. Don't ask me.
Yeah.
I'm dispatching. I'm taking your traffic, and that's it. Don't talk to me.
I like it.
So they kind of, I always said the 2 channels worked hand in hand, almost like a hive mind. You know, it was like, did you ever see that movie Pacific Rim? For the thing, that's what I always said. It was like that. You had to share because you had to keep up with what, you know, if she's running someone, you kind of had to, you know, listen to her be able to say, hey, he's got region or he's got NCIC or whatever for you to send backups. And so we sat next to each other. They put us on exact opposite ends of this huge floor.
No, this doesn't work. This doesn't work.
My friend was actually the dispatcher sitting over on 2, literally on the other side of the room, like looking back at her and just screaming, I need this. And they're like, are you guys going to yell at each other the whole time? Yeah, we are.
You know, it's funny. That is definitely a way to communicate in smaller centers. So I came from a larger to a smaller, and we did everything on the computer at my old agency. If there was a question, if radio had a question for the call taker, got sent over the MDT directly to my screen. But at my new center, I'm like, hey, I'm dropping this call. Just start sending it. I don't really know what I got yet, but someone got to go. Like,
it was the same thing in Carrollton. I don't know what it is yet. Just go.
They need to start moving. I'm working it out.
So we had that going. But yes, the first, you know, they flip the switch and the phones start blowing up. And there were 2 girls from Farmers Branch that were on our call taking stations, and they keep going, oh my God, are these phones broke? What is
flip the switch back. It's not working. Flip it back.
And I'm just laughing to myself because, you know, I'm the person that the world is burning around her.
You have to, right?
So I'm just laughing because they're like, this is not going to work. We need more people. And we're like, make it work. Welcome to Carrollton.
That's hilarious.
So there was a lot of that. And then when we finally, I guess we started getting all the calls actually into our queue, our first call was a burglary in progress. And this new CAD that we were using, the officers had to put themselves in service. I couldn't do it.
Well, that sounds a little opposite of what we need to happen.
I had 0 officers checked in, and
they were like, not ready.
I had burglary in progress, 0 officers, and I had all my chiefs behind me just standing there watching. And one of them goes, "Oh no, what are we gonna do? We don't have any officers," like just seriously worried. And I kind of turned back and looked at him, stomped the pedal, and I go, "Any unit available for a burglary in progress, advise." And I look back at him and I go, "And that's how you do it."
Right?
Then of course they all start, "Oh, I can take it, I can go, I can go."
I'd have been like, the chief's behind me. Is anyone available for
Figure it out.
He's looking at the screen.
Oh man. And it was funny because back before that, I would you would get tired of working that channel because it was so fast. We would rotate usually every 2 hours when I first started. It grew to 4, and you'd sometimes be exhausted after 4 hours on that channel.
I bet, man. I know that feeling. A busy ass channel.
Well, and it's because it's not that big of a city. I mean, it's a decent sized suburb, but it's in comparison, I'm sure, to all suburbs in California, it's not that big.
Yeah.
But the officers were so back to back. We had 8 motor units that would just and we had to take their motor traffic. There's a lot of other agencies, like my husband's agency, that my parents also worked at, is much bigger than Carrollton, but their motor units don't check in. They just do their traffic and they stay in groups.
Wow, I kind of like that vibe, because let me tell you, my pain in the motor unit at 0605, motor 75 with a traffic stop, motor 95 with a traffic stop. Like, it is 0605. I've been here 5 minutes, and we have put out 6 traffic stops.
Yeah,
we need everybody to relax, because they'll pound it out for like a good hour.
And when you get them, and you get a couple new rookies that are just so excited to be an officer, and they start running traffic too, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah, I heard it at my old agency. I hear a motor sign on. I'm like, oh, why are you over here? Go to the other channel.
Same thing. Oh man, we used to beg them, please open a motor channel, please.
Right? Oh my god, seriously, just
work the just sit there and take traffic stops and not have to dispatch.
Like, I can do this all day if I don't got to worry about everything else coming in.
So yeah, but anyway, so that all happened, but we were just so busy. It was one of those, like, I think that was my first little moral dilemma as a dispatcher, that I was like, I could not throw an Addison dispatcher onto this channel.
So interesting.
Out.
Yeah.
And so my supervisor actually was one of the guys from Coppell, and me and my best friend Dusty went to him. We're like, just so you know, we're not getting off these channels till y'all get trained.
Yeah.
We sat there and worked 12-hour shifts on Carrollton and Channel 2, and told them we're just not moving, until probably about 6 weeks in, one of our new coworkers from Farmers Branch says, I was from a town in Indiana that was a similar size to Carrollton. I think I could do it if y'all would train me.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah.
You're like, please, come here.
Supervisor will let us, sure. And he
come drink the water, drink the Kool-Aid, we'll take it.
He was like, absolutely. He goes, I think you should train everybody on our shift.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I sat, and for the next, I think, 2 months, I trained one after the other, every single one of my coworkers to work Carrollton. And that was where I really realized how different just these 4 cities that were all neighbors were, how they did things. Carrollton officers, I used to laugh, they could be a little bit petty. They were very big. They were kind of babied. They were very big on, making sure they were being checked on every 10 minutes, all that. Making sure everything was done just right, to the point that I sat on Coppell for the first time, and one of the officers was driving past another officer on traffic stop about 8 minutes into a stop, and goes, just on the radio real quick, hey, you okay over there? And he goes, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, offended. And I looked at my supervisor, John, and I go,
dispatch copies.
Yeah. Should I be offended that this officer just checked on this officer on this traffic stop? And he goes, what? Why would you be offended by that? I go, because if that happened in Carrollton, they'd be trying to say that I wasn't doing my job. He just kind of goes, wow, that's fucked up.
Whoa, Carrollton be tripping.
I go, so lesson to everybody, check on your officers in Carrollton.
That's hilarious.
So that was it was fun for a while. I mean, it was fun for a while. We had a lot of kind of upheaval, as you tend to do in these like new regional centers.
Yeah, I would imagine.
They fired our director like pretty quickly, the first director we had, just for kind of not doing anything.
Well, shit, hell, you got Carrollton, you only got 2 people going to jail. We should have been prepared for this.
There's a lot they should have been prepared for. We literally came over with 0 policies.
Oh, yeah. And you're merging all. I'm a big policy gal. I'm like, if there's one thing in the world I love in my dispatch, it's policy. Because at the end of the day, if I'm confused, that's what I fall back on. If I'm not sure where to go with it, my style or whatever, I'm like, what's the policy? Okay, it's because that protects me. And if there's no policy, there's nothing to protect me, you know?
Very big on training, very big on policy. That's where I found my love for training, love for policy. I mean, the most boring thing you could think of, policy. You gotta love it. But yeah, like the second day there, I went to my supervisor and I go, hey, I've got a warrant to confirm. What's our process for that? And he just
let him go. He has a few more to get to. Just let him go.
That was about the I mean, he kind of put his hands on his hips and goes, yeah.
We should work on that. We're gonna
And I go, okay, so here's what we would have done at Carrollton. Yeah, do that. That sounds good.
Scary, man.
A lot of that. There was a lot of that, and then we got a new director, and I'm not too sure he's not Satan.
I haven't seen Satan and him in the same room to confirm that they're not each other.
He hated me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, hated me. Made my life a living hell there. I did a lot towards building a training program for them. Never got any kind of promotion into training. It was probably about 2 years in that I was like, I got to go back to school for something. I got to do something. And I kind of kept hanging on to in my mind that I was going to get into medicine somehow, either nurse. I even fiddle-farted with the idea of going to medical school. I always loved the kind of emergency thing. And then I started thinking that was around the time, I think in the first few years that Carrollton had an emergency manager, and learning what that was and what they do. And I was talking to my best friend in the world, who had been a supervisor at one point. And really, if you looked at our career trajectories, probably 5 years prior, she would have been a dispatch lifer, and I would have been, off in nursing school. And we actually flipped, and she got into nursing school.
Wow. You just handed your books over, like, here you go.
And I was the one she kept talking about when I was pregnant. She wanted me to have a natural birth, and she wanted to be my midwife. And I was like, no.
Could you imagine 2 dispatchers, a bathtub, and a midwife? Like, that's
we would MacGyver the hell out of it.
The control, the power shift, the need to control that situation. Your man would be like, okay, look, I'll come back when we're done. You let me know. Like, I can't even.
Literally. I know. I was like, give me the drugs, give me the scheduled C-section.
Right. Let me know. I'll be there. I'll be on time too. Exactly. 49 en route.
So she kept saying this with both my boys. She kept saying, just do it natural and I'll help you. I'll be a little doula. And I was like, girl, you could go to nursing school and you could be a nurse midwife, right? And she really got to looking at it, and she ended up going.
Look at us, just inspiring folks with talking shit. I like it.
Amazing nurse over at our county hospital, and
I did get a 911 call one time. I thought it was hilarious when I was at my old agency. This guy calls me, he's like, hey, we're having my baby at home, a home birth. And the neighbor's pounding on the wall because he thinks they're being too loud.
Oh my God.
So he's trying to like support his lady, bringing his kid into the world, and the neighbor's like, "Hey, keep it down over there."
Like maybe an apartment's not the best place to do a
I
home.
feel like if you got a wall connected, go to the hospital. I
Yeah.
don't know, but
Or go somewhere.
oh yeah, and that call's like that's not a high priority call. I mean, yeah, you're trying to bring your kid into this world without some drama, but in the city of Sacramento, that was a low priority. And, I talked to that man a few times. Like, I hear you. She's still pushing. Like, you guys still good? You need an ambulance? You're okay? Okay, well, we'll try to get there as soon as we can. But
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. But I can imagine if someone had a dispatcher as a midwife, she would have been like, hold this real quick, went right next door and been like, look, we're having a baby next door.
Yeah.
Give me a couple more hours and we'll be done.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. That was a big no for me. Yeah, so she ended up with that, and I ended up thinking I was going to be a lifer dispatcher.
Oh, man.
And that ended up not being in the cards, not necessarily through my own kind of volition, which I think, I was really bitter about it there at the end after I quit. And I was angry for a while because it wasn't the exit I wanted to make. I wanted to move up. I still have like this little bitty dream in my head. Maybe one day I'll go back and I'll be a director of the dispatch center and run the toxicity out of it.
Yeah.
But what I ended up, kind of taking all those things that I liked being a dispatcher. I liked the adrenaline rush of it. I liked what I did. I liked the idea of being a nurse and the emergency, even the doctor kind of stuff. That was all of it boiled back down to being that calm and that person that knew what to do in an emergency. And so I started looking more into emergency management. I even kind of laughed when I wanted to be a nurse still. I kept telling my husband, I was like, I would like, if I ever became a nurse, I would really like to go to places that have been hit by like hurricanes, go travel there and just do nursing there for the cleanup and stuff like that.
Trenches, man. Ooh.
Yeah. So stuff like that. And so when I got down to it, I was like, maybe I want to do emergency management. Maybe that's where it's leading me. So I actually found a college program. I was still working at EdTech. In 2018, I started kind of done college here and there. So I had pretty much most of my first 2 years. So starting in fall of 2018, back to school at Jacksonville State University, which is in Alabama.
Okay.
100% online emergency management program.
We love an online program. I'm just saying. Someone who has a few degrees, love an online program.
And it had a minor in public safety telecommunications.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I got to use some of my work experience as credit, as credit. So that was nice. So I ended up going back to school full time, still working full time plus, because we're shorthanded because everybody is. So, and I did that and I finished it in 2 years. I graduated in the pandemic in the summer of 2020.
Awesome.
Same week that I graduated, I graduated Friday and I was moving down to Austin, 3 hours south of Dallas. And I got a job working for the Texas Division of Emergency Management. I kind of finally had it with the dispatch center. They were moving. I had been on day shift, on 12-hour shifts. Childcare was linked in with all that, all that. And one of the things he was kind of doing, our director was doing to punish people was, okay, well, we're going to move y'all to different shifts. And we're going to take into account all these made up metrics I've come up with as to who's going to go where.
Yeah. See, folks out there who are in these power positions in our dispatch centers, the job is hard enough, guys. The job is hard enough. And I know I've been extremely lucky in my centers to not come across a lot of toxicity with our management. But I know if you just go to these Facebook groups and, dive in there, I mean, that's a rabbit hole you can dive down real quick.
Really?
There's a lot of toxicity in some of these dispatch centers. And us on the floor, us in management, supervisors, we really need to own making our centers a nice place to work because it's already stressful We don't need the drama or the pettiness or the, we just need support. And we know that the job entails sometimes forced overtime, sometimes a shift change, sometimes I'm covering some nonsense. I mean, last night was voluntary, but
Yeah.
I work day shift, and it is possible that during my, off days, if I get forced in for someone, that I might have to go do a graveyard. That's just the way of the job. But I don't want to be petty put on a shift because I made someone mad or I got under someone's skin. Like, we really need to move away from that toxicity in our centers. Like, it's wild to me that it's still out there.
And that was basically it for me. I, got told by the end of the summer I would be moving to a evening shift, 10-hour shift. I hadn't done even.
And then it's a 10. No, I'm good.
In years. Yeah. Like, no. And I told them straight up, I said, if I haven't found a new job by the time shift change rolls around, I'll just quit. Yeah. Kind of what it's going to be.
Good for you. Because, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to know our worth, right? In these places. And, and that's scary. That's totally scary. And I'm not going to just tell people to just go quit their job and, like this free fall. But at a certain point, we do need to assess the department we're at and if they're hearing our concerns and how they're responding to concerns. And if it's not a good mutual relationship, we should start looking elsewhere. Because let me tell you, everyone is hiring dispatchers.
Yeah.
Like, departments, if you think you got it like that, like, someone will go pay me to do the same job because we're all short-staffed. So we should be creating places people want to stay.
Absolutely. Agree. Luckily, I did find a job. I did end up having to take a huge pay cut, but it was like, you know what? This is my foot in the door in emergency management time. That was pretty hard to come by for me. It's funny for how much dispatches, even in emergency management, seen as kind of an integral part of it. It's really hard to get in and say, I've got public safety experience. I've got emergency experience. Oh, dispatcher.
Oh, yeah. Parking lot. Let's go outside and talk about it.
Oh yeah. So it was hard, but I did find this job. It was down in Austin, and I did the interview thinking I'm probably not going to take this. It's such a pay cut. It's a move for me, my husband, and the boys, and the offer, and I panicked because I do it. I knew it was probably my foot in the door, but I was terrified. My husband, and he's like, "So we're moving to Austin." Like,
that's right. Go ahead, hubby. That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
He was like, "Then I guess we're moving to Austin." Like, oh God, I actually have to do this now.
Yeah, right. We already got the car packed, honey. The U-Haul's outside. We're leaving. You coming?
We did. We moved to Austin that same weekend that we were. The Friday we moved. I was starting work on Monday. We moved the Friday before, and that was the day of my graduation ceremony out in Alabama. So I skipped that.
Yeah. Like, mail it to me. I don't need to do the whole thing. I can do a photo shoot at home. I don't want to walk across. It's hot in Alabama.
Yeah. So I moved down there, and my job, I kind of like to say it was almost like the dispatch of the state emergency management.
Okay.
I was called a technical operations officer 1. And we sat, our center was below the Texas Department of Public Safety headquarters.
Okay.
When I say below, I mean 3 basement levels below.
Why are we always in the basements? That is I'm asking the world of whoever's making these blueprints. Why are there no windows? Why are there carpet on the walls? And why are we put there?
This facility used to be a fallout shelter in like the 50s and 60s.
Stop it.
It's
like an episode or a scene from Grease too.
It had like the 12 to 18-inch wide like armored doors on it.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding. So the funniest part is if you go there in the middle of the DPS parking lot on the backside by the docks, there's this little house, and it looks like a little like shed or a shack. like cinder block shack, and we used to call it the Snoopy doghouse because that's what it looked like. Just a little,
Yeah.
looked like literally just like a little bitty like garden shed, taller than that obviously, and had a little pitched roof and one door. That is what you went, and it just opened to a staircase, and you had to that was the only way in and out was the stairs. This, 3
Oh
flights
no.
of
I would
stairs.
have been like, honey, we made a mistake. We're moving back. I
I'm
think
not
Carlton would take me.
let me tell you it was because I was so unhappy at Carrollton or at Intech. I gained about 100 pounds there.
I bet, yeah.
So when I saw those stairs, I panicked. I was like, how am I going to do this? But I did. I did it. I didn't lose
Right.
it, unfortunately, at that time, but I did it for a good year and a half that I was there. I didn't think I was going to make friends. I did. We had basically anything that was going on in the state, we were keeping eyes on. To the point of like trucks that carry hazardous materials. We tracked them by GPS.
Really?
We had to send out notifications when they entered the state, when they left the state.
We had to drop stuff in the state accidentally.
We the time. We had to track the time they were in the state.
Oh my gosh.
Stayed too long. If the truck driver stopped, they had to let us know.
Oof.
It was stuff like that. We had like a data miner that we kept up with so that, if we saw somebody on Twitter go, hey, anybody in, El Paso hear that explosion, we could send it to the people out there, to our, district coordinators out there to go investigate why did somebody on Twitter say explosion.
That is wild because people will call us, like, did you guys hear that explosion? I'm like, no.
I know. You're like, oh no, I guess we'll go figure it out.
No one really called to advise there was explosions, probably just a firework. I don't know. But the fact that there's people out there looking for folks, because people drop that all now on like Nextdoor and like, all those little neighborhood apps that are great to dive into as well. But
any weather coming in the area. I mean, I was there. I'm sure you probably heard about it in February of 2021 when we had the big winter weather storm. Texas. Austin, I think, was affected, one of the worst affected, Central Texas. And our power went out in I don't know. I guess it was Sunday night. Our power went out and we were completely, pretty much snowed in. I called work. They ended up actually getting us some hotel rooms. Power went out at the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
My family actually ended up coming to work with me because they would, feed us and everything at work. So I would bring them to work with me because we had heat, we had food, we had stuff.
Yeah, this is a family center now.
It was crazy. I remember saying through all the stuff that I've done in dispatch, I'm one of those people that's really good at compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
All the things that I've heard, that I've seen, that I've done, I've had somebody shoot themselves on the phone with me. I've had, all the things that you can think of that I would have done in almost 17 years of dispatching, I did. Never had any problems, never needed to debrief, any of that. I was always kind of one of those, it's a cool world that we live in. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and that's just the way of it, and I'm okay. Okay. Just because I know that that's what it is. That is the first time, that is the thing that I have said from here on out that would, if I get PTSD, it will have been from that week.
I bet.
Because I never, in any of the emergencies I've worked, I've never had enough downtime that I could worry about myself and my family and kids and where we were going to eat, where we were going to sleep, where we going to have power, where we going to be okay,
Yeah.
So that was the craziest thing. And I just remember being at work and, almost buzzing with anxiety the whole time we're there. And anytime I could get something to do, I would, jump in and do it because it would be something to take my mind off.
Yeah.
Even having them in the same center with me and being able to lay eyes on them and know they were eating for the day and all that. Oh man, that's still, it was crazy. And and we get over it with our crazy humor. I think the day that my power and water came back on at my apartment, we could go back to the apartment and take a shower.
Right, you start flushing the toilet, just
Yeah. Start taking a shower. I saw a TikTok, and it was a guy in the shower just soaping up, dancing, middle shower, dancing to that Return of the Mac song.
Yeah, Return of the Mac.
Like everybody in Texas right now, and I'm like, oh my god,
I bet. Jeez Louise.
that was the thing I needed to finally laugh. But kind of like anything else, we get over it, we get through it with our humor. But yeah, so it was an amazing experience. I got to learn about how jurisdictional emergency management, we work for these cities and counties, and we know how things work at that level to get to see it at the state level.
Yeah, I could imagine it's more, when we, like in California right now, we have all this weather, this rain.
Yeah.
And I know, like, from my city view, like I have folks calling and the streets flooded, the drains are plugged, the this, the that. And like at a certain point, it's like you gotta go out there with your umbrellas. We don't got enough folks. You gotta go out there and start trying to clear your own storm drain until we get there, type of thing. And so but there is another level of emergency management where the state is operating to help assist cities and all the other nuances, hazardous materials that are getting caught in our storm, like things that we just don't realize are happening around us.
Absolutely.
Are being managed by folks like you who are up in the state level.
So that was a lot of the stuff we were doing. It was fun. It was a great experience. Austin was cool for a little while, but it's crazy. There, it's so much busier than it was when I was a kid and would go down there for fun weekends. And we ended up. I think I figured out really quickly the job itself was actually pretty easy. People really liked me in it. It was a 24/7 position. I started off training on day shift, and day shift basically liked me so much they never got rid of me.
I tricked them, huh? They're not letting me go.
They just kind of kept me. I ended up doing training stuff for them. I ended up switching some stuff over. I'm very process improvement minded. So there was stuff that I would take to our manager and supervisor and go, this isn't working. Let's do it this way. And so I think they were really appreciative of that. And it was a great job for me because I got to finally be appreciated and I got to finally get to know they had their problems. Don't get me wrong. Everywhere has their problems, but to find an employer that was, that would go to bat for you, to find an employer that your supervisors all supported you in anything you wanted to do. It was really awesome to just have that experience and to have my supervisor sit down with me when I'd only been in the job, less than a year and go, hey, we're ready to promote you to the next level. And, stuff like that. And, we need you to do this, this, and this, and did all those things. And boom, here's your promotion.
Wow.
Stuff like that was great. So it was funny because like I said, the job itself, it was very task oriented, pretty easy to get through for any dispatcher. But I realized pretty quickly going in, I'm not going to be able to do this long term because I need more. I need more stimulation. I need more learning, more challenge. I was looking for jobs pretty quick there, sadly. One of those,
I'm always looking for jobs. Honestly, if my department's listening, I'm not leaving. What I'm saying is I'm always looking for the next opportunity.
Yes, always be looking for the next opportunity. Absolutely. That's kind of what I learned from NTech was never, and I kind of told myself after I left NTech, I'm never going to stay somewhere where I'm not learning or growing, or both. And that was kind of what I figured out really quickly is I wasn't learning, I wasn't growing. I would have loved to stay working for TDM, just in a different role. They just kind of weren't available at the time. And one of the things that I had wanted to do, especially since I got my degree, was go into healthcare emergency management.
Okay.
Again, kind of that healthcare background. I had wanted to be a nurse. I'd wanted to be a doctor, maybe. So the healthcare was like, man, this would be really cool. Kind of like working for a college. You're dealing with something that is in essence a small city. All the things they have going, but you don't have the resources that a city has.
Yeah.
You don't have just the water department you can call up real quick and call your guys in after hours and say, hey, come fix this, you know? So it's stuff like that was very kind of interesting to me, both at the college and the healthcare level. So I actually had been putting in for some colleges, some healthcare places around, and a position came up at Children's Health in Dallas. So it'd be back home for me.
Y'all just bought the U-Haul at this point. You're like, you know what?
I mean, really.
We're just gonna keep it. You know, it's kind of weird that we keep bringing it back and come and get it. We're just gonna hold on to it.
And it would have been so much easier. So we did. It was funny because there's another. We have districts here throughout the state that they refer to them as a trauma advisory council, regional trauma advisory council. And I had put in, before I got the job at Tatum, I had put in for a job. They do a lot of emergency management at the healthcare level for the region. So kind of, you have a mass casualty incident. They help coordinate EMS in the area. Do you need extra, if it happens in Dallas, are y'all going to need extra EMS? Do we need to call them from these suburbs to come help you? What kind of patients do you have? Do we need to put hospitals on, do we need to start calling the hospitals or figure out who's got room? If y'all have burn patients, well, we only have so many burn units.
Wow.
Do we need to start looking outside our region? Do we need to start flying people to Oklahoma, to Louisiana, to New Mexico? What do we got to do?
Yeah.
So it's really cool coordination agency for that sort of thing. But I had put in for a position with them before I got the job at Tatum, and I didn't get it, but the guy actually called me and he goes, I just wanted to tell you, because I got the email, I kind of got the thanks but no thanks email, and I was crushed.
Yeah.
And I still, I was crying. I was crushed so much. I really thought I had it, and I wanted to get out of Entex so bad. I sent the guy an email. I was like, you know what? I would still like to work for this place. I'm going to send this guy an email and just say, hey, have you got any tips for me? Anything like that?
Yeah.
That might give me a leg up the next time y'all are hiring. I would love to work for your organization. He called me 10 minutes after I sent that email. The deputy director calls me and is like, I just wanted to let you know we loved you. We absolutely loved you. You would have been amazing here. It came down to experience. We had a guy that had experience in the exact grants we'd be working with. And I was like, I can't fault you. I can't blame you. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah.
So that, it was upsetting, but it was like, man, to really hear that, no, you, seriously.
Yeah.
It was hard. You made this hard,
Yeah.
So they had another position come up that I put in for. And then Children's was one of the places that I put in for also as an emergency management specialist for them. And I had an interview. I think I had a few interviews probably that week. I can't even remember where else Actually, I do. One of them, my husband's family lives in North Carolina, and we've talked about moving to North Carolina. So one was a college out in North Carolina that I kind of had all around the same time. And I was so hyper-focused on this regional advisory council that I was like, they remembered me from the last time, and it went well again. And I was like, this is it, Chris. I'm getting this job. I know it. I was so hyper-fixated on that job that I got the call from Children's, and I looked at I was at work, and it was like 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I look at my phone, and I'm like, oh, let me call them right back, because they left a voicemail, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this number. And I deleted it right after, not really thinking anything of it. And I got a hold of the guy, and he goes, hey, this is the recruiter over at Children's Health. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. Nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you again. And he goes, how do you think your interview went last week? And I go, oh, yeah, I thought it went good.
Yeah.
And he goes, Well, he goes, you think it went good? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, it did go good. It went very good. Tell you, girl, I took this job at Tatum and I was making 48 a year, down from about 65, 70 with overtime.
Yeah.
Then I got a little promotion that bumped me up to 54.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a job to make somewhere between 60 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, it went well. It went very well. They want to offer you the job. And I go, oh, okay. And kind of sat down and he goes, and they want to offer you 80 a year.
Hey.
I go, oh.
Well, I'm just going to have to send the paperwork over. I'm going to have to take a look at it. I don't know. It's a little low.
I go, okay. I was like, yes, I accept. And my husband, and he goes, what?
That is so awesome.
It was amazing. And I went home that day just on cloud 9, all excited, got things going with them. And that night I got another call from the Dallas-Fort Worth area and didn't notice it because I was celebrating. I look at my phone and it was the deputy director from that regional advisory council.
Oh, now it's a competition. I like it.
Yeah, and I go, okay, and I was like, that's this guy, baby, he's calling me and I go, and I think he's gonna offer me this job, and he goes, we'll see what he's gonna pay you, and I go, it's not gonna be that much. And I was a little heartbroken there too because I wanted to work there so bad. Children's came out of nowhere. I had no clue I was even on kind of their radar.
So
but I called him back and he was like, hey, we really, we liked you. We liked you last time. We loved you this time. We want to offer you this job. And I go, I'm so sorry, but you're too late. What? And I go, I got a call from my manager with Children's Health, and he goes, oh no. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I can already tell you I can't match them.
That's hilarious.
But can I give you my pitch anyway? And I was like, yeah, give me your pitch. What you got? And he came in 11 under. And I was like, I want to accept so bad. I do.
No, gosh.
And he was like, okay. No, he's like, no, I understand. It's great. We'll still get to work together because, great. I'm so happy for you. This is great. The very next day, I get a call from the college in North Carolina.
Oh my God, you're just racking them in now.
And they called me during work, and I called them back afterwards, and I go, please, and I had told the guy before he even answered, I go, please don't tell me you're offering me a job. And he goes, no. And I go, okay. And he goes, no, actually, I was calling to let you know that, we ended up going with someone else. And he goes, but I wanted to call and tell you because we just loved you so much. And we really would like you to come at some other time for some other job. We just had to go with someone. I go, no, that's fine. That's perfect. And I told him the whole deal, and he was like, oh, wow, so you're just done with job offers.
But talk about going from one situation to a complete other, right? Where you're just feeling valued and folks are wanting to work with you. And even if you're not getting the job, they're like giving you that positive feedback. More positive feedback than you were receiving at your center prior to, you know what I mean? Like that's elating in general, right? Even if it's a no, it's like a no, but come back,
Yeah. And it was amazing. And I'm so glad that I had that. That was a good boost to my confidence that I needed.
I bet. And see, I didn't even realize that. And again, I try to avoid all medical dispatch stuff. It's not my cup of tea. I do not want to. I am a police dispatcher, and I do not want to provide any medical services to anyone. So for me, I didn't even think about emergency medical management
so it's
being an option.
It's different than at the jurisdictional level, I'll tell you. So jurisdictionally, we're worried about weather a lot. We're worried about weather. We're worried about special events, making sure those are all going off without a hitch. Really, emergency management at the core of it is coordination. We do that all the time. We are constantly coordinating calls, especially if you are working any sort of special events. Every now and then you get to work special dispatch events and stuff. You get to work the county fair or whatever, the command center for that. We used to, I was a TAC dispatcher. So I got all sorts of things like that I had to kind of look at from a very kind of global viewpoint. You have to know where your guys are going in at, and I was one of those. Not every center is this way. Not every dispatcher is this way, but I was very much one of those looking at the house we were about to raid on Google Maps to see with my own eyeballs what was the A side, B side, D side, what were my corners, where were windows, all this. I wanted to know who was on my teams, who was going in where. That was one of those things that made me feel better. There are some people I think that can probably dispatch without all that knowledge.
Yeah.
I needed it. I got to go through the alert air training for active shooter with officers. That was, again, another amazing thing because I got to see with my own eyes their formations, how they would approach clearing a school, how they would go in, how they would take out a active shooter, all these things. And that's just, I'm a very visual person. I have a photographic memory, so I'm one
cheater.
Things play out in my head, like so I can see a clear picture in my head when I'm looking, and I can kind of follow my officers into this house.
We don't need a body worn. We got her. Don't worry.
So you're kind of it. To me, is kind of similar to those things. You have to coordinate all that. You're coordinating where your teams are going. You're coordinating even your fires. If you ever dispatch for fire, when you have structure fires, those are probably a really good kind of intro to emergency management because fire runs the ICS protocol so much.
Yeah.
They have a command set up. They have a command center set up on a major fire. They have different agencies that are brought in. The Red Cross comes in. We would have like citizens on patrol that would come in and bring our rehab tents and, water and Gatorade and anything else they might need for rehab as they're pulling their teams in and out. On top of having to call, your utilities and everything else that they need. That's all coordination, and I think people really don't look at it that way. Setting up those channels, if you're the TAC dispatcher that sends out the SWAT call on Everbridge or Blackboard, Connect, whatever you use, that's coordination. That's getting, you, depending on how much leeway you have as the dispatcher. For us, it was very much, this is your radio. You run this domain. You tell the police where to go. They do what you tell them to. Yeah, exactly. So that way, especially as a TAC dispatcher, and you got to wrangle the SWAT guys. Yeah,
for real.
So they want to start acting like they don't have to check in with you, or they don't have to do this or that, and you're real quick to tell them, no, you do what I tell you to.
that part. Oh,
yeah. So
people listening out there, and the gang units, y'all love to come up on a channel chasing somebody, not knowing where you are.
We had deployment units at one point that could go and do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, they're the worst. Them in probation, man.
They only wanted to do stuff during shift change and call for extra units.
Like no one's here.
Like no one. Literally no one.
I'm sending my partner. She's heading that way now.
Yeah,
thank you.
I have priority calls and no one to send to them. You think I'm gonna send anyone to you? I will, but it's gonna suck. So things like that I would say dispatchers really need to, any good resume writer will tell you to really look at the things that you do and look at how that fits into a job description. It's the same thing. What can you translate over to that? Think real hard. Have you ever led a classroom, training session? You've done presentations. You've done lesson plans. You've done curriculum. You've spoken in front of a group of people. It's things that you have to think about that translate. Even a trainer, I never had formal supervisory experience in dispatch, but I was a trainer for 12 years. Yeah. And did classroom training, I pretty much trained at NTEC for 4 years straight without a break. And you are their first level supervisor.
Yeah.
You are the one that sets their work duties. You are the one that will handle any first level kind of disciplinary issues. You're the one that tells them, knock it off, get off your phone.
Mm.
You know, and they don't translate that, or they go, well, I don't have supervisory experience. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You
No,
have been,
it's true. Like we really do, especially when we're looking at moving on to a new role, a new position, really trying to, really unpacking this
yeah,
job that we're doing. Because I think we do lump it into like, oh, I'm just dispatching, I'm just doing
yeah,
this. And we really need to unpack each level of the things that we are doing
yeah,
because they do translate to these jobs and these opportunities that allow us to help folks in the way that we enjoy helping folks and then provide a little less trauma
yeah,
than a 12-hour shift answering 911.
yeah. So that's, I will say that's probably my biggest tip to any dispatcher wanting to get out of dispatch, whether it's to do something that's kind of dispatch adjacent or getting into something like emergency management. It, like that, really focus on what you do. Really look at your job description as a dispatcher, and not all of them are going to be well built out. You know, I've seen job descriptions that literally just say answer 911 and dispatch appropriate units.
Okay,
But,
the human resources went above and beyond with that one.
no, really look at the things, and I think we had a little bit of experience because our cities and our centers that I worked for went through salary consults a few times, where we were told, write down every minuscule thing you do. So that's what I would tell people. Write down, even over the course of your week or a couple of weeks, write down every little task that you did that day and think about how that translates to something else. And it sounds tedious and everything, but man, when you really add up everything we do in a day and all the variety of things that we do in a day, you will easily find that translates to other positions and other industries even. So that's kind of my first tip to people there. Two, and this is something I'm very passionate about, dispatchers have got to get an education. And I know it's hard and it's very hard to go back to school. So many of us came in like I did, straight, not straight out of high school, but not far from it. And you've got to invest in yourself with that and get an education. It's amazing the shift that went through me. And I was online. It wasn't interacting with other students. It was just having more knowledge. And I say that it probably was interacting with some other setting, and just reading about different things. I went from that person that grew up with the seniority rules kind of upbringing to, we're not going to be able to survive if we keep letting the only people that get to be on day shift are the people that have been here 10 years. We're not going to survive.
Right. Yeah. So true.
And I remember my mom would get so angry about it before she retired. And she'd like, these millennials come in, and I'm like, okay, one lady, I'm a millennial too.
You birthed me. You was there. You created this.
Different, and y'all are older millennials. And I go, okay, Mom, but I'm also telling you, we're not going to survive. This industry won't survive. And why should it? And I go, why should someone that's been there 20 years and hasn't truly worked since, in the last 5 years, sits around and collects the paycheck, why should they get to have all the perks they get for surviving it for that long? Well, sorry, you gotta do more than survive it in this
The
job.
folks that are coming into this work field, they ain't taking, they leaving. They're like, oh, bye. And they're not giving notice. They're like, I'm out. You don't appreciate me, I'm out, so
And
definitely
change
that culture.
He's hiring, so that's one thing. And I think it gives you, I think having that education would also give you a workforce that does know their worth more, that can tell themselves, I don't have to be a dispatcher. I'm here because I want to be, and you better pay me, and you better give me some reason to want to be here. So that's kind of one of those big things for me. In fact, actually, I won't even say after college, probably in my first semester going back to school in 2018, I realized really quickly that I probably need a master's degree too. So the semester before I graduated. My dream school growing up had always been Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a veterinarian, as a teenager, and I wanted to go to A&M. And I had been, an Aggie in the heart ever since. They put together a program. They have a Master of Public Service and Administration program that's 100% online.
Very cool.
So it was funny. It was the same week that I graduated, moved to Austin. I got my acceptance letter.
Awesome. So
cool. Great week for me. But still actually in that program. I will graduate in December of 2023.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's very cool. It's been that lifelong, there's a lot of, everybody says being at Texas A&M, being an Aggie is a cult, and it kind of is.
That's like my fiance. She's a WSU, and she's like, "Go Cougs." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But same time, like it's a cult. They kind of know what they're.
Other things. One of the big things, the Texas A&M has a huge network, and one of the big things is getting your class ring. And ring. So I actually get my ring.
Hey.
There's whole traditions. We got to go to the Dixie Chicken Restaurant, ducking in beer and chugging.
Heck yeah, go do all that. I'll show up for that. The beer, I don't want to walk past stage, but I'll show up for the beer and the chicken.
So I don't drink, and I actually I talked about having gained all that weight. When I first came, my first week coming to work at Children's, I realized I was going to have to walk a whole lot, and I was dying. I was literally dying. And my boss, I was in her office crying my first day going, I don't know if I can do this. This is so much walking. I'm so tired. I hurt so bad. And she told me, she was like, she goes, I recently lost a lot of weight. I had gastric sleeve surgery. And she says, she was a much smaller woman than me, but she was probably honestly about as heavy as I would be proportion wise, talking. And she's like, it's the best thing I ever did. And I hemmed and hawed over it for about 7 months before I had a day, that I was busy and running around, and I kind of went and collapsed into her chair in her office. And I go, I can't do this anymore. And she goes, what are you going to do? And I said, give me the name of your doctor. And I got an appointment the next week. And 2 months later, I had surgery this last September.
Yeah.
I have lost 80 pounds.
Damn, congrats. That's awesome, man.
It's amazing. I have a new lease on life. I've gone off so many medications I was on. I'm running around that hospital like it's no.
They're like, where's Vanessa? Whoop.
Yeah. I laugh because the same, I felt very out of place that first week at my job, that first day at my job, when we had a major incident happen that very first week I was there.
Of course you did. Carlton in the house, like, boom, here's the explosion.
Absolute shit magnet. We had actually incidents happen within my first month there. But the first unit, or the first thing we had that week, we had to move 10 babies out of the NICU somewhere else. And that was a major thing. I was there till 6:30, 7:30 at night, several nights.
So you mean it's not like Grey's Anatomy where, Arizona coordinates all that? There's someone who...
That's what we do. We literally are the ones coordinating all of
that's so cool.
Making sure that that's getting done. We're not the healthcare workers. We definitely rely on our healthcare partners to tell us, well, from a clinical standpoint, we can't just move these babies. That involves having to do this, having to do that, having to move isolate, having to move, oxygen, and all the things that goes into this. All the machines and wires that goes into all this. You can't just pick a baby up out of a bassinet and move them.
Yeah, that's awkward.
My director that was over my manager was a nurse. She was a trauma nurse. So it was really great to have that, to have someone on your team that can go, here's what we have to do for this. But it involves so much coordination. It involves, getting with respiratory therapists, getting with, different kinds of nurses, doctors, all these people involved that you wouldn't have even thought of, having security to hold elevators for us so we can do this possible.
Yeah.
So just the coordination that goes into these things, it blows your mind how many different departments in healthcare that you have to work with for something that seems as simple as moving a baby.
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
So then after that, there's a software program called Kronos, does a lot of timekeeping, HR type stuff. The company itself was attacked by ransomware.
So it is Grey's Anatomy. I seen that episode.
This was the week of a pay week.
Oh my God.
Luckily, we don't use our pay systems through them, but we did use our timekeeping. So we had to figure out, we can't access timekeeping software. How do we make sure over 1,000 people are paid on a pay week?
That's
This is the stuff that happened literally my first month. So I got no downtime. It was trial by fire for me.
Oh my God. Well, hey, if not better who to do it than a dispatcher, right? Trial by freaking fire.
That was where I will tell you my first few days where I did not think I could prove my worth to them because of my physical shape. I will tell you that first week I proved my worth to them sitting in the command center. Everybody was on radios and nobody had radio ear.
Oh,
because they were having to coordinate, it was literally, we were putting timelines together. You do a timeline in any sort of event. Well, we would track baby on the move, time, baby in the elevator, baby off the elevator, baby back in their new room. And we had a doctor that was we were supposed to be being told when the nurse handed them off out of the room, that was what we were listening for. And when the nurse upstairs accepted them in a different room by radio. And everybody's listening to this. And we had a doctor that somebody gave a radio that was living out his Chip's dream. Doctor on the move, doctor in the elevator, doctor, and it kept messing everybody up. I'm listening for Nurse Kim and Nurse Whitney.
Like, sir, if you don't want the baby.
Good. I'm sitting here going, I was like, baby move time, 5:59. And then the doctor says, I'm on the 10th floor or whatever he says. And they're like, oh, that's it. And I go, nope, that was the doctor. And I hear the Nurse Kim say, baby received. And I'm like, baby received at, 6:05.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh.
They, at one point, 10 babies in, look at me and go, how do you hear all this? And I go, for Kim and Whitney. And
I don't care about nobody else.
Just met them. And I go, yeah, but I key in on their voices. And that's what, I will never forget from my manager looking panicked when I told her, I don't know if I can physically do this, to looking over at her and just the pride on her face when she's like, my girl's got this part,
That's so awesome.
And the next day, I remember that whole week I was worried about my job. I'm like, is she going to fire me? Is she going to go, this isn't going to work. I can't do this. She's not going to be able to take off running with us when we need her to. My boss was working remote that Friday, and it was just me and my partner that had been hired in a few months before me. She'd worked at the hospital for years, like 18 years or something. She was around my age. She's just a few years older than me. And I remember telling her, Sylvia, I'm so worried I'm going to get fired. And she just looked at me and she goes, you're not getting fired. And she goes, I will tell you, you proved your worth in that room. And I go, how? How did I possibly do that? And she goes, I used to be an admin. I take notes like an admin does. I take minutes. She goes, I'm sitting there writing down everything that everybody's saying. She goes, I looked at your notes. You only got the important stuff that we need. Every note you took is what's going to go in our after action report. You heard that radio when nobody else did. She was like, you have worth you can't even see. And she goes, your weight, your walking will get you there.
Aww.
Don't worry about it.
That's so amazing.
It was. And that she's been my girl from on. They figured out pretty quick that I'm pretty smart.
Yeah. And I mean, when we talk about, being our best selves and being in environments that that we're thriving in. I mean, I've gained weight as a
Yeah.
dispatcher. I mean, it's a reality of our line of work. Um, but what's harder is to lose weight when we're unhappy in our line of work, right? So it's just one of those other things we need to be conscious about in our centers, and supporting our people is like, let's not make that job harder, because it
Let's
makes
not.
everything
No.
else about our
Because
self-care harder.
that's what it was for me, is being at NTech and being so unhappy for 4 years,
Mhm.
just putting on that weight. And, we all eat out too much. We hit the pandemic and it DoorDash this, DoorDash that.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah.
And that continued for me when I was in Austin,
Mhm.
all sorts of, barbecue capital of the world.
Mm.
And
Man.
it was, it was funny even being in a better place. It was so hard to get the weight off, and I did
Mhm.
in the end. I was the heaviest I've ever been when I came back to Dallas.
Mhm.
I don't think I've been this weight I'm currently at now since right after I had my kids, probably.
Mhm.
And feeling so much better and so good. But yeah, so on to how I got to business continuity. So business continuity, let me just explain this real quick. It's like if there's a Venn diagram, there's emergency management on one side, business
Mhm.
continuity on the other, and they kind of meet in the middle a little bit.
Okay.
So if emergency management is like the disaster happens and they, at least in the hospital level, but even jurisdictionally, say you're hit by a tornado or something like that,
Okay.
emergency management's job is coordinating the cleanup, right? Making sure that everybody's out and safe, making sure that we start coordinating the cleanup, the fix, the mitigation measures for next time, so this doesn't happen. How do we tornado proof this building? That sort of thing. For the future, how do we run preparedness drills to make sure that everyone's ready and prepared next time? Business continuity is working in the a lot in the preparation phase, and their job is, okay, so the disaster has happened, emergency management is working on getting us up and running again. How do we keep us running in the meantime? So if the tornado hits City Hall, how do we make sure that people keep getting their water? How do we make sure that people keep that we can keep our city council and mayor and city managers running and the city? How do we make sure that we keep paying people? How, like for us, when I was at Carrollton, we're actually working for Carrollton, our center was in the basement of City Hall. Where do we relocate dispatch so that they can continue to work? You know, it's all those things. And you have to have plans in place for all of that. You have to identify what are your mission critical functions, what are things, and the goal is not to run 100% normal. The goal is just to run, just to be able to function.
Yeah.
You're not looking for perfection. It's just
duct tape, and a little more duct tape.
Yes, exactly. How do we keep us running? How do we keep paying people? How do we keep doing these things that we got to do to make sure the city runs as best as it can?
Yeah.
And again, we're not looking for perfection. And so what actually kind of got me over to this is we had our emergency management program together at the hospital. We had business continuity plans that the emergency management department had put together. But it's one of those things that can easily fall to the back burner. It's one of those things that can easily just be done to check a box. And my director at the time was very much business continuity minded. It's her little pet project. And it's important. It's very important to kind of, for the preparedness side of emergency management, to make sure you have good plans in place. And I knew a little bit about it because I'd been through a formal emergency management program where it had been discussed. And on top of that, one good thing I will give the director over at NTech is he understood business continuity and was all about redundancies. And that's one of the things that we will use is, even in the dispatch center, if your CAD goes down, what do most centers do? You go on manual.
Cry. We go in the corner and cry.
Yeah, cry. Go on manual. So what if we told you, okay, but the computer doesn't have to go down. It could, you have backup generators that can keep it running, or you have a backup RMS that you can use. It's not perfect, but it will function well enough that you can do your basic traffic stops, dispatches. The redundancies that we talk about. And obviously a manual is kind of your last ditch effort, but it's still a redundant. So I did have this director over at Intech was very big on redundancies. He never wanted us to go down ever. He never wanted one lines to go down ever. We had generators on top of generators. We had backup. Cybersecurity is a big part of that, making sure that you don't get hit with ransomware, that you don't have any gaps in coverage. So that happen. Very big on those sorts of things. It became our IT director would send out like fake phishing emails, and if you make it realistic, he would like send it from our executive director and say, hey, you need to look at these pictures and see if this is one of your cars. And people would jump into it and click the picture to make sure it wasn't their car they were talking about. And if you did click on his little fake links, you would get sent to all right, you've been had. Now you have to take this cybersecurity awareness training.
That's hilarious.
And so it became a competition that who fell for Brian's traps. So I had some knowledge of it because of that. And I remember one day my director over at Children's was talking to people in our same kind of arid division, but a different department. And she was saying, yeah, we're going to get this business continuity program up and off the ground. And
you were like, put me in, coach. I'm ready. I got this.
She was just sitting there and I was, talking, and I was listening because she was right next to my desk, and she was talking to the other department that was next to me. And the manager of that department goes, well, what's that? And so she started explaining it to her. And, we have these plans. We figure out your mission critical functions. We make sure that you can still function. Just having a plan in place so that if that happens, you can keep running. And I kind of jumped in and said, well, it's also really about having redundancies in place so that even if you do get hit by something, I said, just like our power, if the power gets knocked out for some reason, we have generators that will run the hospital, our diesel generators. And then on top of that, we have reserves of diesel gas that we can use to continue to power the generators. And we have curtailments where not everything is going to run on the generator, just the emergency equipment that's plugged into certain outlets do.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, she stared at me for a minute, and I had that, oh shit, I just interrupted her and stole her thunder. I'm going to go back to my desk with my head down and not say another word. No, she ended up going into my manager's office and was like, did you know Vanessa knows about business continuity?
Right.
And they talked amongst themselves, and I got told later by my partner, I guess she had kind of overheard one of their conversations, and she goes, girl, they're looking at you for this business continuity side. Well, my boss had told me, when we hired the two of y'all, we hired y'all planning for the future. The goal was for my director to become a VP, for my manager to become a director, and she said, and for you two girls to become managers. And I remember and this was first week talk, and I was like, you don't even know me.
I can't even find from my car to my parking spot. I'm getting into the building without getting lost. Like, what are you talking about?
Complete idiot for all you know.
Yeah.
And they were true. And I will tell you, that was one of the things that really also kind of kept me hanging on was my partner telling me, look, she was also one of the ones, she was like, I'll tell you, everything they've ever told me has come true. So if they've said it, it's going to happen.
That's cool.
And I sat there and I said, okay, maybe. And so they came out and they said, okay, so we got approved for a emergency, Lori's been promoted to VP, Dana's been promoted to director. We got approved for, we're going to backfill our emergency manager position, and we got approved for a business continuity manager.
Wow.
I'm like, they're going to find someone else. They're going to find someone else, someone else that knows more about this than I do. That was probably in May, cut to July. Both Sylvia and I were promoted.
That's awesome. Talk about full circle. You know what I mean? Like, just finally getting the kudos and being able to really put the things that you're excited about into action somewhere where folks appreciate it. I mean, that's the dream, right?
So now, so I have one member on my team right now. Eventually the plan is for me to have 6 underneath me.
Ooh, look at you. Go ahead, big balls.
It's a daunting thought to have one person. I mean, for the first time the other day, I've had him with me for about 5 months now. And he came over to my desk because we were really finally starting to get our program up and off the ground. We've had a bunch of crap happen, of course. The second,
of course,
we have in our other departments that we have to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But so for the first time, we've kind of started setting our appointments, starting to do our, hey, we're business continuity people. Let's tell you what that is and get your plans up to date. And, he came over to me the other day and he was like, all right, boss, what's on the agenda today? And it was the first time I was like, he called me boss. And
you're like, well, we're going to start by getting coffee. Let's walk over here and talk about
first breakfast. Let's
right? That's hilarious. Vanessa, I feel like I can talk to you all freaking day. If the world thinks we know each other, we don't. It's been amazing. And I love hearing about all these different places folks can go with emergency management. And even when we talk about education, like I think I'm pro education as well. Yes. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think the one thing that we don't acknowledge the value in with the education portion is the life experience you get from it. Not the books, not the grades, it's just even in a virtual setting, because both my master's degrees were in a virtual setting, being able to interact and learn from different people, bringing that for me into law enforcement, even in our patrol units, is so vital to being able to really connect with community and, have positive interactions in the field and over the phones as dispatchers. That's that's for me, the most important, one of the more important aspects of education. So if you're out there like, these fools like to read, they want me in these books and that's really not the whole part of the education that I find the value in bringing it into these fields. It's the human interaction and the life experience you just get from going back and forth with people over a topic and hearing people's different views, life experiences and whatnot. It's invaluable in our emergency service fields for sure.
Absolutely.
And so with that, I want to leave the folks with the question I ask everybody. What advice would you give someone who is considering a career in dispatch, where it all started for you?
I will tell you probably the same thing that I would tell any of my trainees. And it sounds discouraging probably, but it's not. I had plenty of trainees over the years that weren't going to make it. Those of us that have trained for a long time can tell pretty quickly whether it's going to happen for you or not. Mm-hmm. And the last few conversations you have are difficult. And I would always tell them the same thing. Because of course, what do we do as humans? We go to, I'm too stupid for this. I'm not fast enough. I'm not good enough. I'm whatever. And I would tell them every single time, I am not kidding when I tell you, we had a literal rocket scientist come into this job, had a degree, and worked as a rocket scientist at one point. Could not do the job. It has nothing to do with being smart. One of the best dispatchers I ever knew, loved her to death, but she was dumb as rocks. And I would tell them it takes all kinds. I'm pretty smart myself. You have the other good dispatchers that aren't smart and are great at this. It takes all kinds, and it takes a special type of person. And I would also always tell them, just because you couldn't do it here doesn't mean you couldn't do it somewhere. Maybe this wasn't the right speed for you. Maybe you need someplace a little smaller, a little slower, get the basics, have your little light bulb moment. That doesn't mean you couldn't come back here. So that's one of the things that I would tell anyone. If you think you want to do it, go for it, because you'll never know.
Mhm.
And 2, even if you have the hard times, keep sticking with it until the bitter end,
Mhm.
just to see if you can make it through. Because I've had a few people that I thought there's no way they're going to make it. And man, they pulled it out at the end. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from it, is just try. If you think you want to do it, try and give it your all. When your trainers tell you to study, by God, study. We're not for our health. Take advantage of every exercise you can do. Take advantage of every scenario. If you get a trainer that's not giving you that time, not giving you your downtime to run scenarios, run through a chase, run through just a dozen traffic stops that you just type into Word.
Yeah.
Tell them what you need. Don't be afraid to tell people what you need.
Mhm.
Just try. Give it your absolute best. And the final bit of advice that I give to everyone is, don't buy a car before you're out of training.
That part.
Girl check and
Man, my academy mates, I was like, do we work for the same department? Because I swear our paychecks are the same. How you rolling up in that? And I got my 10-year-old Prius. I just got a new car last month or 2 months ago.
I can tell you how many trainees I had that I knew weren't going to make it a few more weeks.
Ooh.
They come into work going, I went, since I saved up money and, with my paychecks being bigger now, and I went and bought a new Mustang. And I'm like,
first and foremost, get the hybrid, baby, because the way the gas is looking right now.
Don't buy a car before you're out of training.
That is so true. That is funny and so true, because I've experienced and witnessed it. Don't do it.
Everybody tries and everybody does, and you're like,
my gosh,
oh, it's
so funny.
It's name tattooed on you. Don't do it.
You can lie about a symbol, baby, but a name, you got to start as a backstory, and people can fact check you. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. I truly have enjoyed our conversation. I've learned so much, and amazing advice on the way out the door, for real. Again, yeah, I really appreciate you coming out. It's been a blast. I really had a good time.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you, okay?
Okay.
All right, everybody. That was our episode today with Vanessa. Emergency management, business continuity, all these avenues and roads that if you're looking to move on from your dispatch centers, are available, because we in the dispatch world, we have a very unique set of skills that can be tremendous in the private sector and the emergency management world outside of dispatch. And one thing that I took away from what Vanessa said as we were closing is it takes all kinds. And it is so true. It takes all kinds of folks to be able to do this job. And as she says, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, and even a rocket scientist can't do the job sometimes. So know that if you're trying to get into this line of work, it's hard, it's long, it's challenging, but once you do succeed, you're amongst a very special niche group of people who get to impact and save lives every day. So with that, again, Vanessa, thank you for joining me today. For those out there, like, subscribe, tell a friend, and of course, stay raspy, everybody. See you next time. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at The Raspy Dispatcher, follow us on Instagram, and check out Let's Talk Dispatch anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'll see you next time, and stay raspy.